Hey there, so many of us are on this incredibly emotional journey of caring for our aging parents, a lot of times while we're still raising our own kids. It's a lot. So today, we're going to walk through this together. We'll explore those subtle, easy-to-miss signs that our parents might need a little more support. And listen, this isn't about taking away their independence. Not at all. It's about making sure they're safe and well, and doing it with all the love and respect they absolutely deserve. So, let's get into it. This just hits home, doesn't it? The moment you realize your parent needs more help, it's almost never this one big, dramatic event. It's more like a slow burn. It starts with these little things you can easily brush off, a missed call here, a slightly confusing story there. And see, that's the thing. Any one of those incidences is so easy to explain away. You tell yourself, oh, mom's just tired today, or, well, we all get a little forgetful. But then, after a while, you kind of step back and you see it. Those separate little dots are starting to connect. They're forming a pattern. And that pattern, that's what we really need to start paying attention to. Okay, so let's look at the first and honestly one of the most visible parts of this pattern, mobility. This is all about how they're getting around their own home and the physical clues that tell us it's becoming a real challenge. Just think about the last time you visited. Did you see them kind of reach for the back of a chair to steady themselves as they walked by? Or maybe use the wall to get from the living room to the kitchen? That's what people call furniture walking. Or what about that tiny pause, that little moment of hesitation at the top of the stairs? These are really subtle cues, but they tell you that their balance and their confidence just aren't what they used to be. And when you start seeing these things together, they tell a much bigger story, right? That unexplained bruise might get a simple, oh, I just bumped into the table. But when you see that, and you see the furniture walking, or you hear about a little fender bender in the grocery store parking lot, it paints a much clearer and, frankly, more worrying picture. The real fear here isn't just the fall itself. It's what happens if they fall when nobody's around to help. All right, let's move on to the second sign, and this one is all about memory, but specifically memory lapses that create some really serious safety hazards, right there in the one place they should feel the most safe, their own home. I mean, can you imagine walking into the kitchen and smelling that awful burning smell, only to find a pot on the stove with a totally charred bottom? Or maybe a neighbor mentions that they noticed the front door was wide open late last night. These are not just little oops moments. These are immediate, serious risks. So this is the really crucial part, understanding the difference between what's just normal aging versus a real safety concern. And this chart lays it out perfectly. Forgetting someone's name, misplacing your keys, hey, that happens to all of us. But repeatedly forgetting to turn off the stove or getting lost on a drive to the grocery store you've been going to for 30 years, that crosses a line. That's a whole different level of risk that we have to address. Now for our third sign. And honestly, this is one of the most dangerous because a mistake here can have immediate, even life-threatening results. We're talking about managing their medications. Just picture this for a second. You're over at your dad's place, and you just happen to glance at his weekly pill organizer on the counter. It's Thursday, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays pills are all still there. Or maybe you find an old expired bottle of blood pressure meds right next to the new one. This is so much more than a simple slip-up. It's a sign that a really critical routine is breaking down. And this is a sign of something that professionals call diminished executive functioning. Now, that sounds complicated, but all it really means is that the brain's ability to plan and follow a multi-step routine is starting to fade. And let's be honest, managing medications, it's a pretty complex routine. When that whole process starts to feel overwhelming, that's when dangerous mistakes are almost guaranteed to happen. So, these are the exact red flags you want to look for. Are you seeing 2 bottles of the same prescription? Are they running out of essential pills because they forgot to get a refill? Do they seem confused, maybe asking you, now, which one is for my heart again? If you're nodding yes to any of these, it's a really clear sign that help isn't just an option anymore, it's become absolutely essential. Okay, this fourth sign, it can be a really delicate one to notice and even harder to talk about. It's about changes in their personal care and just the general condition of their home. Think about how your parent has always kept their house. If a home that was once spotless is now full of clutter, piles of mail everywhere, that's a big change. And when you open the fridge and find expired food, it's not really about being tidy. These kinds of shifts can be signs of something deeper. Maybe physical pain, maybe they're just exhausted, or it could even be depression. So what we're really seeing here is a decline in what are called instrumental activities of daily living, or IADLs. Basically, that's all the stuff you need to do to live on your own. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, managing your money. When those basic tasks start to slip, it's a really strong indicator that living completely independently has just become too much to handle all by themselves.
All right, our fifth sign is probably the most hidden one because it's about something so private, their finances. We're looking at their ability to manage their money safely and what happens when that starts to decline.
You might start noticing stacks of unopened mail, and you can see past due notices through the little windows. Or maybe, out of the blue, they start talking about lotteries or some get-rich-quick thing they saw on TV. This newfound vulnerability is a huge red flag. If you notice they're struggling with something simple, like figuring out a tip at a restaurant, that's a clear sign that financial reasoning is getting harder, which, sadly, makes them a perfect target for scams. And I really need you to hear this, because it is so, so important. Financial mistakes are often one of the very first signs of cognitive decline, like dementia. When someone who has always been so responsible with their money starts making these really uncharacteristic errors, it's time to step in. It's time to protect everything they've worked so hard for before it's too late. So if you've been sitting here nodding along, recognizing some of these patterns, the big question is, okay, so what do I do now? Let's talk about how to get from just noticing things to actually taking action by having that really difficult but really necessary conversation. First, please just hear this loud and clear. It is totally okay to feel a whole mix of things. Relief, guilt, sadness, that's normal. But by seeing these signs and deciding to get help, you're not betraying your parents. You're not taking anything away from them. You are protecting them. And that, right there, is an incredible act of love. Here's a little roadmap for how to have that conversation. First, lead with respect and empathy. Just acknowledge that this is hard for everybody. Then focus on what you've actually seen, but in a non-judgmental way. So instead of, I'm worried you're going to fall, maybe try something like, Mom, I noticed a few bruises on your arm and I saw you holding onto the wall earlier. Can you tell me about that? And then, the most important part, just listen. Really listen. Hear their fears. Validate how they're feeling. This has to be a conversation, never a confrontation. I think the most important thing to take away from all of this is that you do not have to figure this all out by yourself. You are not alone in this. There is a path to support for both you and your parents. You know, navigating this, it's one of the hardest things you will ever do as a son or a daughter. You're trying to balance everything, and you're doing it all from a place of love. So please, in the middle of all the stress and the worry, just remember that you are doing a great job. So as we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this one question. This isn't about solving everything all at once. It's about progress, not perfection. Based on everything we've talked about, what is one small, loving step you can take today? Maybe it's just checking that pillbox. Maybe it's just making a phone call, not to solve anything, but just to listen. Whatever it is, that one step is the beginning. It's how you start protecting the people you love. Thank you so much for joining me.